All right, we are live. Aloha, everyone. We are live and inspired today. I'm your host, Gregory Cobrana, also known on the YouTubes as, you guessed it, Handsome Cobra. And today we are going to be talking about the new Doomsday Clock, number 10, I believe. That's the one that came out. Yeah. So yeah. And just probably won't be a long video. Maybe go 30 minutes about it. It's just going to be the single topic. And yeah, so just wanted to kind of give my thoughts on it and kind of go over it a bit. And I will say that I didn't even I will say that I did not read number 9 before I read number 10 again. I mean, I've read number 9, but I mean, it's been 3 months since the book came out, or over 3 months, and I had no. And honestly, if you don't you don't need to read 9 to understand 10. I'm just going to put it out there. And yes, this will be spoilers for Doomsday Clock number 10. And if you hear like kind of like a gruffness and tone of my voice, or maybe full of disappointment and anguish and just maybe other parts of unholiness, I'm so sorry. But you have to understand that this book is going to take, this is me, my educated guess, my hypothesis is 2 years. That the issue number 1 came out in November 2017. This, I believe that the final issue will come out November. I believe it was November 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, was the actual day that Doomsday Clock number 1 came out. So just my overall general thoughts on the book. As exposition and padding, I think it's good. It does explain things, but it explains things. It does explains Dr. Manhattan's approach, what he did, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you've read Watchmen, if you know the character of Manhattan, then you understand where he's coming from, and all this is a science experiment. At the end of the day, that's what it is for him. And if you look at it like, because John Osterman is a man of science, dealing with tachyon particles and, atoms and rearranging atoms. That's why he names himself Dr. Atom, or Dr. Manhattan, I'm sorry. But he's supposed to be a allegory for Captain Atom, the Charleston character, or an analog for that character. So yeah, it's one of those things where if you know the history of the character John Osterman, Dr. Manhattan, then you understand that he is a man of science, and you will understand his motivations. And on that level, it explains pretty much in good detail. The problem is that, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I've said it with Chris on our show, Gentlemen with Cocktails, that once it's collected, the whole 12 issues, it's probably going to read really good. Really good. My problem with each individual issues is that it's too little too late a lot of times. Jeff Johns has gone on record saying that if the way our country wasn't, and I'm talking about the United States of America, if the way that our world was changing, and I'm guessing the reason that our presidency is the way it is now with our current commander-in-chief, President Donald J. Trump, with him winning, he probably wouldn't have done it. Now I'm sorry, but I'm still trying to see see the allegory or the uh, analog or the metaphor between this Watchmen or Doomsday Clock and Watchmen. Because I understand, because you have to understand, Alan Moore wrote Watchmen, right? So it's kind of like one of those things. It's like a British dude looking from the outside and telling Americans, how your politics are, kind of, right? I mean, that's kind of like what 2000 AD, the comic book is, with Judge Dredd and all that shit. I mean, it's just a bunch of British people, cousins across the fucking pond who are all salty because they lost the fucking war, the Great War. Sorry to let you know. And if you don't know what the fuck that is, it's Revolutionary War. It's where we, gain our independence and, put some fucking bayonets, pitchforks, cap some motherfuckers too with muskets and shit, and basically declared our independence. And and so for me, it's just one of those things where Jeff Johns, I don't know. I can only see it as like, and I imagine he's more leftist, and or more of a liberal person, maybe even a libertarian, like what's the name, Bill Maher. So, I mean, I understand. So what I'm getting at is that Alan Moore, it was like, it's because this is a time when, Reagan economics is high in effect. Comic books, Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen are coming out. And the thing is that the way that the politics, especially American politics, especially like even British politics, because you have to understand Margaret Thatcher, you had the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and the hunger strikes going out there and stuff like that. So, Alan Moore sees all this stuff too, and probably relates it to like Watchmen type stuff as well. And, I mean, he was alive for the Vietnam War and all that jazz. He wasn't over there, but, he got to watch the probably BBC, Channel 1 or Channel 2, and see all that shit go down as a kid or as a teenager back in the day. So it's one of those things where, I mean, for me, it's really hard to try and figure out how Jeff Johns is relating this to Alan Moore's Watchmen as on just a meta level, metatextual level. And that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm sorry if my speech is kind of muddled, but that's where I'm trying to go with this. Is I'm trying to understand where he's going on a metatextual level. What the hell is he trying to relate with Alan Moore's Watchmen? Because it's just kind of, I'm not saying that I don't enjoy it, that I don't want to see these characters again, that I don't want to revisit these characters again, because I do think it's good. I do think it's good. But the story that he's laying out, it's like, okay, what the fuck? I just don't understand. But, I mean, I just don't understand, okay, I mean, even if the presidency didn't go the way that it went, it doesn't fucking matter because your story barely connects to things. I mean, you can do a paper and fucking, you can do a dissertation on fucking Watchmen and Doomsday Clock and basically be like, this is this and this is that. Yeah, you fucking, you could write a whole fucking novel about the shit. Possibly. Probably 300 pages, man. About like the significance of both, the differences, how one's more relevant than the other, how neither of them are fucking relevant. I mean, you go sideways, you go up, down, lateral, it doesn't fucking matter. You could write your heart to your heart's content about these two books. But the thing is that at the end of the day, or these 12 issue series, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to say like one's a masterpiece and one isn't. But I will say this. I thought that Doomsday Clock, when it first came out, when it was first coming out, it was excellent. It's great when it first came out. Now, and it's not because we're in the latter half. It's just that basically, number one, I have big problems with it not being prestige format. So I'm paying $5 for a fucking book that basically has a more of a cardboard-esque cover with staples in it. Watchmen back in the day, I think it was like $3, but it was actually book binding. It was what they call prestige format, each book, and it was now the art. You know, it's Dave Gibbons. I mean, Dave Gibbons is no. Oh fuck! What's his name? Now I can't. Gary Frank. You know, Gary Frank's very detailed and stuff like that, and his art's phenomenal. Gary Frank is a really good artist. But you know, Dave Gibbons is as well too. He's very clean. I do like his art, but I have to say, Dave Gibbons he is no Gary Frank. But the fact of the matter is that now we're at the bitter end of this book. It's just, to me, there's two more issues, and it could basically blow up my skirt. You know, I don't really see it happening. I'm going to tell you straight up and honest to God truth. Not because I don't want it to, not because I want to be disappointed, because I really want the series as a whole to be good, to be great, phenomenal even. I have no expectations really of the book. I got to tell you that when I first read Watchmen, Alan Moore's Watchmen, I didn't give a shit about the book. I didn't care about it. It wasn't until I was older that I actually started to appreciate it more. A buddy of mine, he let me borrow it when I was like 18, 19. And I didn't give a fuck about it because those weren't my superheroes, right? They just weren't. So, but then I appreciated it more. Like I read it later on in like my mid-20s, and then I read it this last time in my 30s. Right. I haven't read Watchmen since. But I mean, I know the story and stuff. I mean, I have a hard copy deluxe edition of it in hardcover. But I mean, I still have that. That's one I bought. Oh, shit, I think I bought it when I was in the military. That version that I have now. And yeah, so. But yeah, let's but I've been going on for 14 minutes, and I'm really making a whole hell of a lot of sense. So let us dive into Doomsday Clock number 10 and figure out, okay, where am I coming from? Why isn't it blowing up my skirt? What's going on? So Doomsday Clock number 10, starts out when we meet a character, an actor by the name of Carver Coleman, who, I'll just tell you right now, it comes to find out he's a homosexual. And basically it's the 1930s. It's 1930s. He actually, I think it's 1950, because the timeline switches. So the first page it's I believe 1954, and I believe it's like the day or the day before he dies, and we find out that Carver Coleman is a homosexual. And back in those days, it was very, homosexuality wasn't very outspoken. It was more, as people say, taboo, right? You didn't talk about that. 60 years ago, it wasn't a thing. That it was kept on the down low, as they say. And the thing is that, but we find out that he's being blackmailed, and the person who's blackmailing him is his mother, because basically Carver Coleman says that, hey, he grew up in, I believe, Arizona with his mother and father, which really he grew up in Philadelphia with his mother. His father left them, and his mother actually would dance with guys for dimes, and one day his mother brought a guy to the house, and when he was a child, and he ran away. And I mean, they don't say whether or not the guy stayed or not, but it's just kind of like one of those things where Carver Coleman thought that his mother basically drew the line there, and he was like, okay, I'm going to draw a line in the sand, and I'm fucking out. And he goes to California. He gets a job as a newspaper boy, and then he starts having a usual route. People don't really remember his name because people call him like Kenny or Calvin or whatever. I mean, it's just one of those things. And then he gets a job in I believe a film distribution place. But he sees his boss of another man having an intimate moment with each other in like a back alley type thing. And the thing is that the man was smoking a cigarette, and he drops it. Next thing you know, the distribution center or the film place burns down, and Carver Coleman's out of a job. He's sleeping on in an alleyway. Cops come up like, LAPD do, and beat the fucking piss out of him, as they do, and what they're best known for. And we can even see back even back in the 30s, because this is like around 38. Even the LAPD were beating people, not just of all types of ethnicities. Even if you were all what they would call the Caucasian persuasion. So yes, I know it's a fictional book. I know, and but and then Dr. Manhattan shows up. Basically, he is trying to find his way, right? Because he is not of this universe or this galaxy. And the thing is that he's trying to find everything he sees just from. And then he's Carver Coleman. He is Dante, and Carver Coleman is his Virgil, in an essence, right? If you want to relate things to the Divine Comedy, right? And so they go into a diner because Manhattan hears what we call its stomach growl. And what's kind of cool is that Manhattan can manipulate the light spectrum or lighting to make the waitress see how he wants her to look. So basically, he looks like his old self, John Osterman, right? And instead of this muscular blue guy with his wang hanging out, bald. And so yeah, and it's really cool. And the first time I read it, I didn't catch it until the second time I read it. Then I actually saw there's on the bottom right, there's a panel that has Carver Coleman on one side and John on the other, and he looks just like John Osterman. how he used to look before the accident. And so he tells Carver, or Dr. Manhattan, John tells Carver, listen, look, I need to focus. I can't, I don't understand your universe. I don't understand your world. And basically Carver asks him, hey, are you an angel? You know, and he's like, are you a guardian angel? He's like, no. Because at first, you see one panel, he's like, and he's like, no. Because John, I do like this about Manhattan. Manhattan is for as much as he tries to play God, he doesn't see himself as a god. He's a man of science. And that's one of those things too where I was kind of confused on, okay, is he playing, and that's the thing, it's like doctors play God a lot of times. You hear of the God complex that a lot of doctors have, because they take the Hippocratic oath, and their thing is to save lives. But if you have a really good doctor, really one that's really mucho dinero, high price, sometimes they get the big head, they get the hubris inside of them, and they're like, I've been put on this earth, I am a god. And it's like, dude, you're fucking retarded. I mean, when people start going that realm, it's like Sting back, thinking that he's the fucking Antichrist back in the day when him and the police were big. I mean, he's just, the guy was a little fucking out there. Sting was an idiot. I loved him back when he was with the police, and as Fade, I will kill him. It's like I loved David Lynch's Dune. I loved it, but he was like totally shit for brains. And so yeah, it's just fucking retarded. But yeah, so Manhattan is a guy who is all about theories, all about experimentation, all about science. Measurement, documentation, facts, laws, stuff like that. Concrete evidence. So so basically Carver becomes his anchor in the DC universe. And then and I will say this, one thing I did appreciate and I did like was that he actually talks about the many worlds interpretation, that I couldn't remember the person that developed that theory, but the person's name is Bryce DeWitt, and that's kind of cool. And actually, because I'm a big, I don't want to say believer, but I talk a lot about the many worlds interpretation, and I can see it. I mean, I could see it happening. It is a theory. I mean, it's not, it's not a law, but yeah. And if you're not familiar with the many worlds interpretation, that means that basically what happens in, like, let's say this world, let's say I do this podcast, right? I'm doing this podcast on Doomsday Clock number 10. Well, let's say that in another universe, I never do a podcast. Let's say in one universe, I actually play the role of Wolverine in one of the X-Men movies because I'm 5'6", and I lived out in California, and I was really good. I had a really good was it silver tongue? Was it? Had the ear of Joel Silver, or somebody, or Dick Donner, or somebody in the industry, Kevin Feige, or what's her name? The Spider-Man lady. Shit, I can't. Amy Pascal. Whoever, right? An exec. And, they want to make a Wolverine movie. They want to make a proper Wolverine movie, and so they cast me as Wolverine because I take acting classes and stuff and all that jazz. And yeah, okay, cool. So I'm an actor, I mean, but the thing is that many worlds interpretation, that there's an infinite amount of worlds, that there's these big possibilities, right? And but the thing is it's never small things that branch off. It's always big things. So uh if like one could be like, I never joined the military, right? I stayed in college. 9/11 did happen, but I stayed in college instead of, I backed out and I stayed in college, got my 4-year degree, got my master's, and went into sales, marketing, stuff like that. Work for a Fortune 500 company, things of that nature. Uh, some may, one interpretation may be that there's big possibilities. That's all, because now I'm just going on a jaunt about it. I'm sorry. Thing is that he brings that up, but he says that, listen, look, this world right here, this world, a lot, many worlds interpretation has to deal with, this is just one world. It's not the center. It's just one world. Okay. This world is this world, if you change, this world has been changed so much that it's a constant of change, right? So this is the focal point. This is the center universe, or the center world, the center Earth. And with this change, other changes happen. It's like a chain reaction, right? This isn't just because he was saying that the people of the DC universe see this as 52 worlds. There was one world with only one world. There was one with 52. There was one with multiple worlds, multiple Earths. The thing is that, but this one has been changed so much that it's just a conduit of change. It's like, you change this one, everything else changes. So he calls this the meta universe, this world right here, the DC universe prime Earth is that metaverse, and everything else changes with that. So, and what he did is that when he moved, and so he went, okay, the first because he's like, hey, in one world, Superman first shows up in 1938, then he shows up again in 1986, then he shows up again in 1956, then he shows up again, then he shows up again, then he shows up again. It's just, his origin keeps on changing. Well, and that's where he comes up with the theory, right, or hypotheses, that basically this world is in constant flux of change. Like this like the world will never end, because it's like the metaverse, it's susceptible to change, and it will heal itself. It won't end. It won't die. The world won't die. It's like, the more things change, the more they stay the same type analogy. And so he's like, okay, well, let me do an experiment. What if because he's like, okay, well, everything started, when I first saw this, everything starts with Superman. And then, so he goes through Superman's timeline, and then that's where he sees like the different origins. And then he sees Superman get Superboy, get transported to the 31st century. And then with the Legion of Superheroes, Cosmic Boys, Saturn Girl, and I think, Lightning Lad, or Lightning Boy. And the thing is that, and the thing is that he's transported there because, they asked him to join, because why? Because Superman is that inspirational hope, right? It doesn't matter. The thing about, in the DC universe, Superman is that hope. And then when hope dies, you only have despair and distraught and left. And the thing is that so he basically because when Superman first shows up in 1938 and he saves these people from and lifting up the car, in the iconic Action Comics #1 pose, you see that that's a chain reaction where others, like Jay Garrick, Kent Nelson, Jim Corrigan, Carter Hall, um, the rest of the people of the what's his name, Alan Scott, Green Lantern, all these, it starts a chain reaction of all these events that happen. And then you have the Justice Society of America, the JSA, form, right? And you see him talking around, saying like, "Hey, show me a way for Superman. Should we see where he is?" Or, I was like, "No." And then you see another, and one time, and then it kind of flips and is like, "Superman who?" And stuff like that, because you have to understand is that with Dr. Manhattan, he sees time isn't linear for him, and relatively speaking, time isn't linear for all of us. Time is time, and that's why they say space-time continuum, because we are the ones. It's back, lack of a better term, man-made. That time is linear because to regulate us, to discipline us, to set us on a course, on a path, right, of commonality, if you will, a path of control. That's what time does for us. And the thing is that basically Manhattan, on the other hand, he sees the strings, he sees everything, and he has to differentiate time. Like, is it now? Is he trapped? Because he can travel past, present, future, stuff like that. But the thing is that so he was like, okay, let me do an experiment. Let me see what happens if I take hope away from this place. Because you have to understand is that Manhattan's world, the Watchmen world, is totally different. Where this is a place of optimism, his is more of a place of pessimism. It's people are more reluctant to help others in the Watchmen universe, but in the DC universe, people are more likely to give a person a hand up, right, or a helping hand, if you will. And so, and he sees going through time, through his time space continuum, that a lot of it centers around Superman. So basically, he moves the Lantern out of Alan Scott's way. And basically, what does that happen? Well, Superman gets erased from the timeline of the Legion of Superheroes, and the JSA is never formed. Alan Scott dies. JSA is never formed. Superman comes to Metropolis, but his timeline is changed again. His actual parents, John and Martha Kent, still the ones who raised him, but on the eve of his senior prom, his parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent, die in a severe car accident instead of dying of natural causes, or them both living, or one of them, or John dying and Martha living, or vice versa. You see what I'm saying? And so Superman becomes more alienated, more introverted, more restrained in himself, more enduring. And basically, John sees this, and basically, he likes it, that Superman is more like him. or is becoming more like him. That John is becoming more of a surrogate father to him. That the hands of fate, per se, or his hands at work, are dirtying up Superman's lineage and origins. And the thing is that one thing that I liked in it is that basically he says, listen, look, and he says that, you know, when I did that, it was intoxicating, because you have to understand, like, John divorces himself from humanity by choice. It's not because he doesn't feel, it's because he actually, there's a switch, right? And he clicks it on, clicks it off. But he tries very hard to click it off, but sometimes it clicks back on because he's human, because he gets a sense of surprise, or a sense of anxiousness, or a sense of wonderment, right? Because he's still human. As much as he tries to divorce himself from humanity, the man makes himself to be a big, muscular, blue ball head dude with a little dick, you know, and he's walking around naked, for fuck's sake, you know, in his birthday suit, and he's trying to divorce himself so hard from humanity with no shame, no pride either. It's not like he's like, you know, I mean, the dude could, like, you know, have, you know, Mandingo down there. I mean, you know, flapping around. I mean, the dude can rearrange his molecules if he really wanted to, but he has no pride, no shame, or at least he tries not to. That's why he does that. He, you know, he tries so hard to divorce himself from the human condition and human functionality, but he can't. And that's one of the things that I like about the character, but I also dislike about the character as well, because he's hiding his true self, because he's not being real. He's not being true to himself. He's not being real. He's being fake. It's like, it's okay to be disappointed in the human species. It's okay to be disappointed in yourself. It's okay to be disappointed in your fucking neighbors, or if you see somebody in the parking lot and they're acting like a jackass or a j-hole, it's totally fine to be disappointed with them, you know. But to completely divorce yourself from the human species, then brother, your head ain't fucking on straight, and you need some psychiatric help, because that's just totally bananas. And that's the thing about John Osterman, where it is totally bananas. So he rearranges it where Superman is more like him. He finds it intoxicating, and basically the thing is, though, is that the metaverse pushes back, because it's like, no, you're fucking with my shit. You're fucking with our shit. You're an alien. You don't even belong here, and you're fucking around with our world. Fuck you. Get the hell out. So that's why we have DC Universe Rebirth with Wally West coming back, but then he actually sees John and basically tells him, listen, look, you're fucking with shit, that you're meddling with stuff that you don't understand. And then, you know, he traps him back in the Speed Force. And then that's when Barry Allen remembers Wally West. And then there's like these pieces that keep on shattering of the illusion that Dr. Manhattan put up. And then finally, you know, we find out that, Carver does die. Carver Coleman dies at the hand of his mom, and with Oscar trophy that he won as an actor. And then we see John basically doing this fucking like supervillain monologue that basically he says that he's a person of inaction, where Superman is a person of action. And in this universe, and in the universe of Superman, he, in all intents and purposes, John Osterman, Dr. Manhattan, is the villain. And then you see Superman wake up from the bed that he's been laying, the gurney type bed that he's been laying on after the events of Moscow with Firestorm and was it Pulsar and all that stuff that went down over there. And because he's in a like a medical gurney in the Hall of Justice. And so yeah, and then his eyes awaken, and basically whatchamacallit, he Dr. Manhattan does go into some fact that, hey, listen, look, I mean, I have seen the future. Either Superman kills me or I destroy the metaverse. Either one. And the thing is that basically when what he did on Mars, he didn't kill the DC superheroes. He actually subdued them. He actually said, hey, listen, look, I got to make it look like that I put you down because Superman's going to be here, and I have to make it look like that, and I have to get him enraged. I have to figure this out because he can't make out what's going on, because apparently he can only see so far into our world. That's something, basically some unknown force is blocking him. Basically the universe probably trying to heal itself, and it's just, and he can't find. But here's the thing though. Okay, so the book was all exposition. That book, and I can tell you this, the whole story could be shorter. I would say that it could probably, like all this stuff could have wrapped up maybe 10, maybe 8 books. Where it's like you had 2 of the books with maybe more pages. You just say it's a double issue or issue and a half. I mean, it costs $7 instead of the $5, but you have more content, more story in those 2. I'm sorry, and I'm not sorry to say this. See, Jeff Johns does not care about wrapping up this fucking story. He doesn't. I mean, my biggest problem with this is that, okay, like everything that I thought. Now, I'm not trying to be one of these people like I knew what the hell was going on, but and let me tell you, if you're a smart motherfucker and you understand, you pay attention. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that Jeff Johns is a stupid dude, but it's like, if you pay attention to comic books, if you've been reading comic books, there's pretty much only certain ways, or if you can just go by just an inkling of common sense, there's really only a fucking way that this could go by. Dr. Manhattan was the creator of the DC universe, and basically when he said that I'm going to go off and try to create something, I'm done with this universe, I'm going to go to another one and create something. Okay. To Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias, and then takes the fuck off at the end of Watchmen. Okay. Then he is the Lord and Savior, the fucking one above all in the DC universe. I looked at it as a possibility, never really saw that happening. Number 2, he muddled with the time, just like they fucking said, just like Jeff Johns pointed out in DC Universe Rebirth, where not just 5 years was taken away, 10 years was taken away. So yeah, it lines up with DC Universe Rebirth number 1. Okay, great. The Button, another thing that where you have Reverse Flash fucking dying, or getting 86'd by Manhattan because he says that he saw the face of God. which really wasn't the face of God, but it's like when you see a more supreme being than yourself, and you feel, and once you come to the realization and the epiphany that you are lower than whale shit in the eyes of that person, that you've come to realize that you are insignificant in this person's eyes, yeah, you're probably going to call that person God, no matter what the fuck they look like. Blue dong hanging out or not. I mean, it could be, fucking big blue tits hanging out. You're going to call the being God, probably. Excuse me. What does God need with Starship? Who fucking knows, right? Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. I love that movie. I love it so much. But yeah, we're talking Doomsday Clock, so we'll get back on that. But yeah. And so, yeah, it's great for exposition. But this book could have been wrapped up in 4 less issues. I think that Jeff Johns is really trying to pay homage to Watchmen. And I think at the end of the day, I do think that it will be a good read at the end. It'll be a good read. Will it be on the level of Doomsday Clock or a Doomsday? Fuck. Will Doomsday Clock be on the level of Watchmen? I don't know. Honestly, at this point, I really don't care. And that's the thing, is that you have to understand too, is that, yeah, I mean, you could be like, oh, well, you're just being salty and being a curmudgeon and just being an asshole because you just want the story to wrap up and you don't give a damn about, panels and shit like that, or like the time that it's taking. And it's like, no. I will say this. Number one, you have to understand, I don't think it's just because of Gary Frank. I think it's because of Jeff Johns too. Jeff Johns ain't never going to come out and say, listen, look, DC, basically, we could have had this wrapped up 6 months ago. But you know what? They were like, well, we can't wait on you, Jeff, because, oh yeah, you're no longer the chief creative officer. You're not the fucking head motherfucker in charge of the DC universe anymore. Everything's been pushed more over to like people like Scott Snyder, who are like the up and comers, and probably going to be after Jim Lee fucking either leaves or croaks or kicks the bucket or whatever the fuck you want to call it. He's probably going to take over if he really wants to. If Scott Snyder wants that position of like an editor or a chief editor, right? Or a chief creative officer. Hell, that's what he's doing right now in Justice League, because he has his fucking character Perpetua, who is the mother creation of all of the fucking DC universe. That's what his shit's leading up to now. So, and the thing is that, and so now, at least we have hardcore evidence and documentation. This is a good thing. This is the silver lining in this, is that we have hardcore evidence and documentation that basically Dr. Manhattan, yeah, he didn't make the DC universe. He fucking did an experiment on the DC universe and basically found it so fucking intoxicating, and basically, in what happened, he found his fucking humanity again. But the thing is, and by getting his humanity, he became a fucking villain by retaining his humanity, by getting it back again. He has become a villain. Is that worth the price of a person's humanity? I don't know. It's something to ask yourself, yes. It's a very good question, actually. But at the end of the day, with all the delays, with everything that has happened with this book, another question is too, do people even give a shit at this point? Because the DC universe has been going on. It's been on a fucking trajectory that has nothing to do with Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, or fucking Doomsday Clock, for that matter. Because it doesn't matter how Doomsday Clock ends, because it has nothing to do with the DC universe going forward. But they did say too, but I will say this, they did say too that him fucking around with the metaverse basically created Dark Knight's Metal, created all this other shit that's happened. You know, like the was it Justice League versus Suicide Squad, all this other shit that's been happening in the DC universe. I mean, so that was kind of nice to have that clarification, right? Where you have these dark, you know, so you have the Batman who laughs, you know, the Red Death, you know, like all the Dark Knight's Metal universe, you know, the negative, the dark universe, the dark world, or whatever the fuck it's called. I can't remember what the hell it's called, but yeah, you have all these that from that spawn all this other shit from his tampering. So that was nice to get confirmation on that. And if you caught it, kudos to you too for catching that. But still, it's. And then we have number 11, which number 11 I can tell is gonna focus on what is it? Black Adam busting in at the UN where Wonder Woman was giving a speech, or was going to give a speech, and basically Black Adam busting in with Giganta and Creeper and the people and the super and the metahumans who were given asylum on Kahndaq. So, and yeah, and that's perpetuated by Dr. Manhattan, by his muddling. And I can see that at the end of the day, that, you know, it's like what I could see at the end of the day. I don't think Manhattan and Superman are going to come to blows. I think that if I were to say at this fucking point, Jeff Johns is probably going to be a man of his word, and basically for like probably the whole fucking book, last book, or most of the last book, that Clark Kent Superman and John Osterman, Dr. Manhattan, are going to have a conversation. And I think John is basically going to find his humanity again, or has found his humanity. But I think he will find his humanity in the way of going back to the Watchmen universe and helping it, and trying to find a way to heal it. Because I like what he says. Because he does say this. He does say, listen, look, I stopped the war in Vietnam, but before I stopped it, I didn't stop Eddie from killing a woman that had a child in her body, that was with child. Basically, he's talking about the woman in the Vietnamese woman who was carrying Eddie Blake's child. And if you don't know who Eddie Blake is, he's a comedian. And basically, she took beer, and then she took a beer bottle and cut his face up, disfigured him, and then he shot her, cold dead. And some people say that's reactionary. Some people say it's just him. He is a cold-blooded son of a bitch. Also, too, Adrian Veidt came up with this magnificent plan. And basically blaming and having both superpowers, the U.S. and Russia, come together to fight manufactured alien cause. This big space octopus-looking thing with telepathic abilities. Basically doing a scanners where it's like popping off, people's heads like a fucking zit, and blood pours out and stuff like that. And once again, he foils Adrian Veidt's plan, but he does nothing. He doesn't lock him up, doesn't put him in jail. He just says, fuck this world, I'm out, deuces. I'm going to a different galaxy. You humans do what the fuck you want. Humans do what the fuck you want. Because we all know that, John Osterman is human. As much as he wants to divorce himself from the human species. And the reason why I keep on saying this is because I want to remind people that, yes, he is human. He is not a god. He may think that he may be playing God. He may find playing God as intoxicating. That motherfucker is not God. He's not a god, or he's not in the pantheon of gods. He's just a fucking human that has abilities. But here's the thing, is that basically every human has a fucking weakness. Even John Osterman has a weakness. The thing is, he's just trying to figure it out. Because he ain't fucking all that in a bag of chips. So yeah, and yeah, at the end of the day, I think that with that, I think that, yeah, he will do the right. I think that he will, if one way I would like to see it wrap up, dollars to donuts, I would see that Adrian Veidt be imprisoned or incarcerated or put to the death penalty for his involvement with what happened in Watchmen. That he gets that retribution comes his way, and it's actually John Osterman is the one who puts him in his place and basically tells him Rorschach was right. And maybe John gets ostracized for the death of Rorschach. Maybe he comes to terms with what I did was wrong. I shouldn't play God and stuff like that. Because also too, Dr. Manhattan has powers, but he's dealing with things that he doesn't even understand or know. Just because you theorize about something, just because your perception is just because you have a perception of subjective projection or perception of something does not make it real, doesn't make it false, doesn't make it the way it is, doesn't make it a measure. It just makes what you perceive to be in your mind's eye true or real, or however you want to word it, whatever semantic you want to fucking put in. And that right there, to me, I would like to see. But here's the other thing too. We still have to deal with Mime and Marionette. We still have to deal with the Joker. We still have to deal with the new Rorschach, Reggie Long. There's a lot of other shit, right? Other characters that got pushed to the side, okay? And Jeff Johns has to wrap that shit up in 2 fucking books. Can he do it? Probably. But still. It's just, to me, it's fucked up. And like I said before, I guarantee that once it's all said and done, I will appreciate the story more. But you have to understand that right now, like, people can say, okay, why are you so invested? Why do you give a fuck about this? Because I love comics. Because comic books, like I said before, comic books are the things that got me into reading. Without comic books, man, like, and that's the thing too. Without comic books, I would have never been into college. I wouldn't be working on my master's right now. I wouldn't be a smart motherfucker like I am. Okay? And I don't mind boasting about that shit. I'm a smart motherfucker. And I don't know what my IQ level is, but you know what? I'm a clever son of a bitch too. And so it's like you can be smart and clever and cunning and all that shit. The thing about it is, without comic books, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I wouldn't have never been in the Middle East, the Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom, Iraq and Afghanistan. I would never been over there. You know, I would not be the man that you see before yourselves today. Right. So I owe a lot to comic books in the realm of, because if the pictures never grabbed my attention, if I never had older siblings, especially an older sibling, my brother Carl, breaking down the syllables and stuff like that, having loving parents that, especially a loving parent as my father, who basically would give my brother extra money to make sure that when we picked up our fucking comic books, that he would actually help me read them, like if I didn't know them, and not just look at the pages, because my mom just kind of like went with the flow of teachers, because, I've said this before, my birth mother is the type where any person shows a little bit of authority, she just kind of goes with it, like cops, lawyers, fucking public servants, school people, counselors, whatever, what is it? Doctors. Doesn't fucking matter. Anybody who has like a certain level of authority, like my mom is just going to be like, okay, I guess that's the way it is. And usually 9 times out, and no, it's not the way it fucking is that not everyone learns the same. Not everyone deals with shit the same. That's why we're individuals. That's why some people are more audio than visual learners. Some people can just read shit and get a grasp of the concept in their mind's eye, where I'm more visual. It's like, motherfucker, and I'm more hands-on as well too. So visual, hands-on type person. So I actually, it's like literally, you can show me how to do something, and I'll retain some of the information, but I retain it better by building up the muscle memory, by actually doing it and seeing it being done, like myself doing it, like actually paying the fuck attention. And people who don't understand that, they're fucking dumb, because that means that they don't understand, or they don't give a shit to learn. Like, hey, listen, look, people can do things. It's called building muscle memory. It's like you have to do things over and over and over and over and over and over again, like at least 10,000 hours to actually get to grasp the simplest of concepts of what the fuck you're doing. And then you got to, do like, I think like 50 hours is actually being good at it, or 50,000 hours is actually being good at it. And 100,000 and up, it's like you're basically, you're perfecting it now. That's a lot of fucking time. But at the end of the day, the reason why I give a shit, because without comic books, I would not be here. I would not be doing this podcast. I would not have met many great people in my lives, that even people who are not blood related to me are my brothers. And one or two ladies that I can actually call sister, because I never grew up with sisters, but there's one or two that are like the closest thing I have to like a sister or sisters. So, and when I have, like, when I need advice of the female occupation when it comes to women and stuff, especially a foxy lady that I'm kind of digging on, and then, I don't want to fuck it up, I talk to them, because they're the closest thing I have to a sister. So, but I wouldn't have met those people without comic books. So that's why for me it's such a big deal. And it's like, I'm all about, hey man, you can have your shit, you can have your cake and eat it too. But also too, I'm paying $5 for this fucking book. And number one, it's like, and the reason why, and because I said that I was all in on this, right? Just like I was all in on Civil War II Electric Boogaloo, the sequel. I made myself a promise that I don't care how bad this book is, I'm still going to get it, because I made a promise to my comic book retailer. And I'm not going to Welsh. I'm not going to renege on that fucking promise I made to myself and to them. So, and I try to be a man of my word. Unless I can't pick my books up that week, I say, hey, it's like fucking just hold on to them for me. I get paid next week. I'll try to get them all. If I can't, then I'll get half or something, or we'll figure something out. But that's the thing, right? Is that I told myself that no matter good or bad, this book I would still get. Now, me reviewing it, on the other hand, can't say that it's going to be good or bad. But I'm not going to say that I haven't been entertained. I have, for the most part. But I think and I'll start wrapping this up. I think the most disappointing thing is that, I'm not saying that you can, when you can see the strings, because that's just fucking, that's just stupid. When you have a good intuition, when you're pretty smart and you have a pretty good intuition as to where the story's going or where the story can go to make fucking sense. Because if you look at Doomsday Clock, it's a pretty simple fucking story. Just if I'm not going to get into it, like I said again, if you look at Doomsday Clock right now, all 10 issues, we're here. I mean, the end game is upon us. And that's going to be the last fucking issue. There's only fucking maybe a handful of ways that this book can go, can end. One of them I already fucking said with, that. Or Dr. Manhattan just fucking leaving. Him and Superman having or Superman just punching the shit out of him, kicking the crap out of Manhattan. Manhattan killing Superman, which won't happen. Not in this fucking lifetime. Manhattan gets reverted back into a baby. I don't that'd be ridiculous. But, that'd be some Benjamin Button type shit. But, what I'm saying is that there's only so many ways pragmatically that the story can wrap up, that you can fucking, if you just connect the lines or join the dots, you're good. Right? Line the dots, join the dots, whatever the fuck you want to call it, connect the lines, whatever. There's only so many ways that this book can go, because we are basically at the precipice, the end game right now of this fucking book. So yeah. And the thing is that, I mean, and if you haven't been paying attention to the DC universe rebirth, then it's just kind of like, but I guess what's just kind of saddening is just, and I guess maybe a little disheartening as well, is that, well, why the fuck did I even spend money on this damn book? Because number one, it has nothing to do with the future of the DC universe now, because they've already gone. I mean, this is like the worst version of Secret Wars 2015 by Jonathan Hickman and Asab Ribic. I mean, this is way worse than that. As a story, I love Secret Wars 2015. I love it. I cried at the end. Problem is, though, that motherfucker was supposed to be 8 issues, plagued with delays, got a 9th fucking issue, and to this day, I still see fucking multiple copies of like 6, 7, 8, 9 Secret Wars 2015. Why? Because everyone's like, fuck it. It's like, I all new, all different fucking Marvel's already out. They're talking about fucking Marvel Now 2.0 coming out, in 6 months. Why the fuck do I want to see how this ends? I'll just fucking I just fucking read it, or just wait till fucking Newsarama comes out, or fucking, uh, Comics Rama, Comic Newsarama comes out with the article and shit, or until my buddies read it. Why the fuck am I gonna waste my hard-earned sweaty money because these motherfuckers can't get their shit together? Marvel publication, same damn thing, but at least, you know what? Secret Wars was 6 months. This, on the other hand, is turning into a goddamn year of delays. A year. And in comics, that's a heavy price, man. That's a heavy price for a delay. But yeah, so and I think that's where the real thing that's just disheartening. And I understand, man. I'm not saying that I'm not a comic book person. I'm not a comic book writer. I don't make comic books. I don't create that medium. But when you're a professional and you're a professional at your craft, your audience, the people that you supply your craft and the product that you supply those skills to, there's a fucking demand that your customers, your audience, whoever has. They have expectations, because that's like, if you're considered one of the greatest artists of all time, there's a high expectation, and then you come up with something like that's like shit, and it's like, oh, it was experimental, and I was doing drugs at the time, and I was in a cave of wonders, and I don't know, I just wanted to try something different and new, and now I'm addicted to crack cocaine. It's like, no, you weren't being experimental, asshole. You just, fucking chasing the dragon, or fucking just, you're no longer good. You're no longer great. You're no longer that person. You're no longer on a fucking the pinnacle, the summit. You're fucking, you're no longer up there. You're just, and you can call it experimentation, whatever the fuck. But the only person you're fooling is basically the one person, and that's yourself, because you're just fooling yourself. That's the biggest fool that you're fooling, is yourself, because no. But yeah, so that's just one of those things. Like, for me, it is one of those things where it's hard for me to say, like, I don't like to hate books, or not hate books, but I don't like to talk bad about books, right? Or bad about artist or creator or anything like that. But if there's a level, like, if I have a certain skill set, for instance, and a person pays me to do a job, right? Let's say private contracting, say out in the Middle East, okay? Jordan, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, wherever the fuck, right? Whatever part of the fucking Fertile Crescent you want to call it. If I'm a contractor, okay, and I'm there to do a job, and there's an expectation for me to execute my job in a manner and there's in a certain element that is related to my skill set, and I don't provide that to people, then that's on fucking me, right? That's what I'm talking about. Because there's a level of expectation. Like, they vetted me, they fucking checked my background, they, fucking like, all right, this is what we expect from him. My clientele. Then, then that's on me for not delivering the goods. Because I have a responsibility. Because it's a job. And any which way you want to take it, I mean, you can look at it as it was just a fucking job, or you could be like, yeah, it's just a job, but I still have to be up to snuff, up to fucking par. I have to be fucking vigilant. I have to do my due diligence to not be, if the job calls for not being inebriated, not being, if the job calls for being of sound mind and body at a moment's notice, having zero tolerance for chemical substances or mind alternating chemicals or situations or anything like that, right? Now, getting sick and stuff like that, that's a little bit different. But like, if I'm putting poison in my body, and basically it's like, and I'm supposed to be, and I'm supposed to, and I know I'm putting poison in my body, like I'm doing this willingly, as some people who have addictions do, or most, for the most part, they are willing participants in that vocation. Then it's my responsibility to basically make sure that I do my damnedest, that I don't do that, I don't put poison in my body, that I'm that I'm ready for anything, because that's what my job requires. That's why I'm getting fucking paid. That's why I'm over in a fucking third world country and not in my own, getting paid probably quite handsomely, I imagine. So yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Basically, relating to Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, that basically, yeah, I mean, they're just dropping the ball. And to me, it's like, well, I mean, they dropped the ball, and they've been dropping the ball, man, for like going on 8 months now. It's going to be fucking not. It's going to be 10. It's going to be 12 months that we already have a date for. I think it's like August 14th is when number 11 comes out. If it gets pushed back, I wouldn't be fucking surprised. And then 12 will come out probably November, December, Christmas time frame. But yeah, so, and hey, listen, look, I mean, if you don't agree, if you don't like the video, I'm sorry that you don't like the video. But this is how I feel. I mean, this is how I feel about the book. Okay. The book on a whole is good. Just standalone issue. Like, if we're talking about standalone issue, it's good that we get exposition, and basically it just reconfirms your suspicions, your hypotheses, your educated guesses, your idea of where it's going. I would say don't pick it up. Honestly, honest to God, don't. Just wait for I mean, if you've only picked up the first 3 issues of Doomsday Clock and got off, wait until it comes out and trade. That's what I would do. I would say this, that I was already pissed off that it was not in prestige format. I think that was a big slap in the face and a disservice that Jeff Johns, DC, and fucking everyone else and the executives at DC did to the people, and they weren't paying homage to Watchmen, that this is more of a fucking cash grab. I think whatever Jeff Johns is trying to say about the parallel between both books, shove it, keep it. No one cares. And that's just how I feel, because I don't fucking care anymore. I don't even understand where the motherfucker's coming from at all. Like I was saying in the beginning, I mean, it's I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. So he can just shove it, and he can just keep on writing good Shazam books, because I really do am enjoying that. But even with that, I can see that, yeah, he's padding it out. Even with that book, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm spending fucking $4 for this shit. Yeah. And yeah, so, and I actually like the character of Shazam, Captain Marvel, Billy Batson. I really do. I love the Shazam family. Like I said, Mary Marvel's my favorite character out of that group. So, I mean, I'm still going to read it, still going to buy it. So, but yeah, with that being said, I'm going to wind it down. Hey, thank you so much, everybody, for watching the video. I hella went over. I only want to do 30, 45 minutes, but hey, it's totally cool. I had some stuff on my mind. If you don't agree with it, I mean, that's totally cool. And hey, we can have a conversation. You can comment below. Let me know your feelings, your thoughts on my take on it. If you don't agree, that's totally cool. And hey, I have mad respect for you. I probably will read it again. I've read it twice so far, issue 10, and I probably will read it a third time. Chris and I will probably have a discussion on about it once he hasn't read it yet. So that's why we're not having a discussion about it right now. But the next Gentleman of Cocktails, we'll totally delve into it. We'll get his opinion on it. And hey, maybe he can persuade me to see the light side, instead of going full Dark Lord of the Sith on this one. Maybe he can persuade me back to the light side on it. So, yeah. Well, with that, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends as well. Love to all. God bless. And as always, you know it, babies. Aloha. Thanks. Woohoo!